Hi everyone, so today I'm going to be showing you the '07 Honda Fit reasons and changing your thermostat today. So one of the reasons you feel you need to change your thermostat would be your temperature gauge reach higher as cold or hot on your dash or lower than usual. There's also a sudden air temperature change in the vehicle, coolant leak, and the heating takes too long or is too cold, too hot, then too cold again without touching any gauges. There's either a heat malfunction, you might hear a water gurgling sound as if something is pouring in your vehicle, which it isn't. And if your car is over 10 years old or higher mileage, you might want to look at getting a $20 thermostat part because it might save your car from a funeral. So these are the items we're going to be needing. 10mm socket, a long one and a short one. You're going to need pliers. You're going to need some antifreeze coolant, type 2, so 50/50. You're going to need the gasket for the thermostat, and you're going to need the thermostat itself. So here's what a thermostat looks like. And to get the old bolts off, you're going to want some type of lubricant or super lubricant, as WD-40 might not cut it for you. You're going to need some jacks, one on each side, as well as one on the front. So this is your airflow box. We're going to be needing to take this part off, which is including this. So there is one washer here and one down here. And then this is going to be sliding off. So you take this off. Next, you have to unhook the mass airflow sensor, which is back here. You really don't want to clean it or fix it unless you have money for a $200 part. Don't bother buying that spray. It's not worth it. You're also going to have to take the wrench, pinch on this, release this, and then the harness is actually, once this is taken out, all this here, you're going to pull that out. Below that, there's going to be a harness, and the harness will also be taken out back here. Once the harness is taken out, we're going to look on the left-hand side for 4 large bolts near a large tube, and that'll be the thermostat. So when I get to that part, I will let you know. And as you're going, take photos, so that way when you're putting it back together, you're looking at the photos from reverse. If you have any concerns, at least you can go back to a video, or you can color code things as well, which I might be doing myself. So stay tuned. Okay, so now the car is safely jacked up. One behind each tire, one in the center. And crawl down the car here on the driver's side. You're looking for this white plug, which should be replaced if the gasket on it is worn down. Otherwise, you got your pan here. What I'm going to do is drain it. Once I'm done that, I'm going to go back to the top of the car and start working on that end of things. Okay, so the intake box is now off. Now we need to take off the wiring harness, as I mentioned. So you're just going to follow this harness piece around, and you're going to look for the bolt right underneath here. Might not be able to see it. And then there's another one back there. Just follow along and look for the black pieces here. So there'll be a wiring harness bolt back here as well. Your thermostat is just under here. Alright guys, so I already put the part in. It looks like this. The gasket goes on. You take it out, you put it in the same way. Your new part. So where you'll find it, once this is taken all off, which I had to unclip this, unclip a whole bunch of these here. I had to unclip these. You pull this cable back. Don't pull this black piece out. Comes out. Then you take this off, and then behind the mount here there'll be 2 pumps, and there'll be 4 bolts, 2 on the top and 2 on the bottom. You won't see, you'll have to hand feel it. Your battery does need to be taken out for the 07 Honda Fit. There's no room in this vehicle to work. It can take longer than expected. So now I'm putting these parts back together. These got clamped back in, here and here. Gotta make sure we put all these back in. Mass air intake, these 2 here. Make sure you push down till they click. If they don't click, use something here and push down hard on it. The assembly piece here I also took apart, which I just finished putting back together. Some videos don't explain that. There's also some ATV grease that you should be putting once you remove the part. I'll show you on a photo where that goes. Once you clean it all out, you pull these 2 hoses out for better access to it. I'm going to continue rebuilding, so I have the battery left to do, the air intake, and then connect this back together and see if an error code pops up on my code reader that I bought for $5. Okay, so I'm going to suggest putting in the air box first and then the battery, because I had to unhook the battery for some room to be able to reconnect the air box. So make sure you do the air box before the battery. Make sure all your bolts are in. If you have any left at this point, you're missing something somewhere. The harness itself has quite a few screws, so make sure those are in as well. Now it's time to fill up the radiator, coolant, antifreeze, whatever you want to call it. Since it's empty, just make sure that this is replaced. It's a cheap part, but it could save your car. So we'll do that next. Once that's done, I'm going to start my car. Okay, so now we have the reservoir full. If you overfill it, make sure you have a turkey baster or something to suck it out. Also, you want to refill the reservoir here. I got a max and minimum line. You want it in between minimum and maximum. It's also hard to see in these containers, which is why I marked it when I took everything apart. I'm going to start it up, run it for about 5 minutes. You're going to watch that bubble up. You don't want it too hot or it's going to explode. Once all the air bubbles are gone, it's safe to put the cap back on it and then turn off the vehicle. If you're in an enclosed area, make sure your garage door or whatever it is opened. As well, I like to work with cardboard underneath the vehicle in case any of these tools end up falling. You can hear it better than on concrete. I've also had to use an extension piece here, 10 millimeters, a couple small ones, one of these. It's always good to have one of these as well. I use this, and if you're about to lose your parts, you want something magnetic here. You also need a flashlight, possibly a bungee rope, and a hammer because sometimes things are harder to get at. So we're going to go ahead and start this up, watch it bubble a little bit, and see how it goes. Okay, so we've got her started up. The cold is on there, but it's to be expected right now because it's not warmed up more than 5 minutes. For those of you using those cheap code readers, that's underneath here. Just letting you know that in order to reset the code, you should put your ignition switch not to start, but to almost start here. And then you go into your code reader and hit reset. You should hear a reset in your car, and then turn your car off. Turn the code reader off. And then start the car again, check the code reader, make sure your codes have cleared. If anything hasn't really cleared and you're not seeing it, you just want to verify that with your code reader. So let's go check on the antifreeze. Okay, so we got some bubbling going on here. I think I overfilled it a little bit, so I'm going to suck some out with the turkey baster. In the meantime, it has to run for a full 5 minutes. Make sure everything's up and running. I put the cover back on. Easy to do. Very next day, once you do start driving your vehicle, you're just going to want to check that there's no leaks under the vehicle. The cardboard is there to help out. It'll really tell you whether or not your vehicle is leaking or not. That's just from water right now. I washed out the engine. Then I WD-40'd it just so it disperses the water and doesn't rust up my engine. If you're all wondering how it's so clean, you just use tire cleaner. Let it sit for 10 minutes on a hot engine, and then wipe it down. Hi guys, so I'm now in the vehicle with the cool light no longer on. So I can now shut off the vehicle and put the ride cap back on. Check it the next day to make sure the fluids are accurate. Just remember that coolant expands when in heat, so make sure that you're not overfilling this or you're going to have a problem down the road. Also, I forgot to mention that you want to turn your heat to 4 and crank it in that 5 minutes, so that way your car is running hotter. This is my first time doing this. Make sure you do this on a weekend where you have a parts store available if anything does break on you. I took my time on this. It took me about 3 hours. For those of you that know a Honda Fit, they're all compact vehicles, changing the battery every 2 years. If you think that's a chore, this project, your biggest timer is going to be after that air box is taken off. It's going to be the assembly. Right below the assembly is an easy fix. There's the 4 screws that you're looking for. And by the first pump closest to you is going to be where the thermostat is. Some people recommend using AGF sealant. So you put that to seal everything around that. Once you open that up, you're going to realize it's very tight in there. You want to take off the old AGF sealant. It's probably gray. You don't want to leave anything on there. To clean it off, if you need to clean it off, you're going to have to unclamp the 2 big hoses that are there and put your finger in there and clean it out, kind of thing, and then see how that goes, and then clamp it back on with the thermostat in there. Then put the AGF sealant in there, and then the 4 bolts need to go in. You're going to have to feel for them, the bottom ones, with your fingers. Go slow on that. Also, the assembly, there's going to be a couple screws at the very back, very difficult to get to, so you're going to need the extended 10mm, and you'll know what I'm talking about when you get to that. That's also a big pain in the ass. You want to buy a lubricant spray that's going to take off, help lubricate the bolts that are on there, because those are also very tight. You don't want to over tighten things, but the thermostat one, you want it to seal properly. Some people don't use the AGF sealant. It's not a big deal, but make sure you're tightening it real tight. And again, 24 hours. You want a cardboard under your vehicle just to test for leaks if anything does happen. Because in summer or in winter, you back up your vehicle, you don't see anything. The snow basically melted it inside and you're not seeing colors, and that's why people use cardboard. Cardboard is also good when you're working under the vehicle, as well as if anything does fall through, like a screw, and you lose it, you hear a ding on the cardboard versus the cement, where you're not going to hear it and you're also not going to see it very well. You want to make sure that your engine does not have any screws in there. It can cause problems to the fans if that's the case. You want to get that magnet stick and be able to pull that out easily. And make sure all the screws are going where they are. If you have any left over, there's a problem. It's more than likely you forgot a couple screws near the assembly where they're very hidden. So make sure you got that down pat before anything else. Next step would be putting in so the thermostat's in, everything's clamped, then you want the harness assembly put together. Once that's done, to put it back, you're going to want to put the air box, and once the air box is in, then you put in your battery. Once your battery is in, you're going to go back to the radiator and you're going to fill it, and then do that 5-minute testing by turning on your heat while the vehicle is started and the rad cap is off. And of course, that's when you have the rad fluid in there and the vehicle started, and you're checking for bubbles because it's burping the system. You also want to make sure your reservoir is between minimum and maximum, that white container. And coolant does expand, just remember that, so you don't want to overfill things or there's going to be problems. Once your 5-minute test is done, that C sign on your dash should be gone, and then from there you can shut off your vehicle and hopefully have a safe ride once you're going to use it. You can also test drive it in the meantime, but if you're not in a hurry, it's not a big deal. My code reader read it was clear, so I didn't have to clear any codes. If you are going to clear a code with your cheap code reader, which I did explain in my previous videos on how to use and diagnose things, so those of you that haven't seen it, you get a cheap code reader, you Google the code, it'll tell you what the engine error code is. Older vehicles, you're chasing a ghost. Thermostats, I'm told you're supposed to be changing it at least every 10 years to preventative maintenance. I only spent $57 versus $300, so that's the thermostat, the gasket, the coolants, the 2 bottles of coolants, and I also bought some clips for underneath the car because this vehicle is so low that there's so many rattles. These things kind of fall out when you get oil changes done, so a bunch of clips is good to have. I also have a next video on the hatch not closing properly, so I'm repairing that as well. If you're interested, please follow me, and thank you. Have a good day.